than ever, roughly 5,000 barrels a day. Problem solved? No. The tube is still missing a lot, and we've been getting some signs from that. You can see it's still coming out of there. Clearly, the original official estimate was low. So many scientists have been warning about. On the coast, meanwhile, thick, syrupy crude is now encroaching on the all-important wetlands at the mouth of the Mississippi River. Much more on that in a minute. Government scientists also are seeing signs of oil in the so-called loop current that dips around Florida and pushes up the east coast. Chad's going to have something on that in a little bit. In that case, we're talking about sheen in that loop current, not heavy. But now to the new pictures. Under pressure from Congress, specifically the Senate, BP making public a live video feed from that ruptured pipe on the ocean floor. It's on the website of the House Select Committee on Energy. But be patient, the site is being overwhelmed, we're told. Moments ago on Capitol Hill, lawmakers showed an array of new images aired their concerns, one of which deals with the dispersants. The EPA is now telling BP to find another chemical because what they were using to disperse the oil may indeed be a toxic problem as well. The chemical being used now in mammoth quantities may be developing just another environmental risk. We can't bring you the smell of that sludge in Louisiana marsh, but the pictures will take your breath away. CNN's David Mattingly can testify to both of those. He joins us this hour from New Orleans, just along the Mississippi River there, David. And there must be a sense of depression coming on there as we're now seeing the wetlands being invaded with this oil.
Not just depression, but desperation, because all this talk about how big that spill is, how much oil is actually leaking, that's all academic compared to what's happening here. What is happening in Louisiana is real. The oil is here. It is impacting over 40 miles of their shoreline. And just now they're able to show us that some very heavy patches of this crude oil is coming ashore. And Governor Jindal made a point of taking us out there to show us a very up close and personal way. Look at this right here. This is some of the thickest sheen that I've seen out here.
I had already seen oil washing ashore in Louisiana several times before, but nothing like this. A thick, syrupy slug of oil oozing into delicate wetlands.
It's getting even worse. Take a look at this, over this way. Look at that, solid black. Look at that.
It's exactly what we were promised, an up-close look at a pool of crude oil poisoning an environmentally sensitive marsh. Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal led us here to show the Coast Guard and anyone else who will listen, attempts to contain the BP oil slick aren't working well enough.
Do you feel like they're listening to you, and do you think they'll listen to you now?
I hope we get approval for the permit today. I hope that people see this heavy oil, they see the impact this is having on the marsh. Let's be very clear. This isn't tar balls. This isn't sheen. This is heavy oil.
Oil that is coating everything it touches, killing plants, just like it could kill any fish, turtle, or bird that gets caught in it. This is the first time a patch of heavy raw crude has made contact with land since the disaster began.
The big question is, how did it get here? How did it get past all those booms? This is exactly the kind of spot where they did not want to see this coming.
This oil not only hit land, it made its way into the fringes of Louisiana's estuaries, the vital birthing areas of Gulf fisheries, something the state is trying to protect at all costs. This trip is part of a political I told you so, as Jindal wants federal approval and BP money for a massive plan to restore eroded barrier islands, natural barriers to storms and oil slicks.
The oil's here. How do you get it out of here? Cleaning it off a beach is one thing, but how do you get it out of the marshes?
That's exactly right. You know, they've got folks out here with shallow water skimmers and absorbent boom, but the reality is this. It's much, much easier to fight this off of a beach, off of a rocky island. It is much, much tougher. In many of our wetland areas, many of our marsh areas, the cleanup efforts could probably do more damage than the actual oil itself.
This is one marsh that may never recover in a month-old disaster that continues to get worse.
A top BP executive looking at some of those pictures that we got, he calling it devastating. BP telling us today they've got crews out there to clean this marsh area up as best they can, and the pictures, Drew, just don't do it justice. This stuff is like a thick chocolate syrup floating on top of the water. Anything that gets in that could easily die from some sort of poisoning, any sort of aquatic creature, any kind of bird. It's very dangerous stuff, and the fact that it's here now is a great source of alarm to everyone here in Louisiana.
David, let's be honest. Once it gets into those marshes, there is no way to clean that up without destroying the entire marsh, is there?
The best thing they can do is probably contain it to minimize the damage, but oil was touching is going to die. Those marshes, that small part that was hit, that vegetation is going to be gone in a matter of days. Any sort of microorganisms that were growing in that soil, in that shallow water there, they're probably going to die, and that starts having a cascading effect on the food chain. So officials here in Louisiana are now saying, okay, here's the damage, here's what's happening right now. We can only imagine what's going to be happening 10 years from now, 20 years from now, as this oil is creeping in to their most valued possession, these fisheries that keep those fishing operations throughout the Gulf going around here.
Wow, David, great reporting, man. This is like a slow-moving hurricane just devastating that coast. David Mattingly from New Orleans, thanks for joining us.